So hello everyone, welcome to this session of JoomlaDay USA. My name is Olivier Buizard and I am right now in my office in Brooklyn, New York. And I am the owner of Simplify Your Web. You may have heard of me without even knowing it. I'm the developer behind jQuery Easy, the plugin that helps you deal with JavaScript issues on your websites. For today's session, the team of JoomlaDay USA would like to thank our gold sponsor, Watchful, a company that has been helping digital agencies safely managing Joomla websites. It's a great service. They can maintain your websites and do it in a record time. Open a free account today at watchful.net. A bit of housekeeping before we start. Remember, you could visit the expo hall anytime during the day. You will have the great opportunity to meet the sponsors, sometimes in person. So don't hesitate to go and visit. You can also do some networking. Please go and click on networking. You will be able to speed date with someone that you don't know, or maybe you know, for 5 minutes. You can even extend the time if you really have a great conversation. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A section of this, and we will answer those questions at the end of the talk. Time allowed. We have 1 hour, so we should be good. Do not request to come on the stage. You can only interact with the chat and the private messaging and the Q&A. And if there are polls, you may want to answer the polls also. You can double click, like I said earlier, on the Marc's screens to make the window look bigger. And that's it for the housekeeping. So what about Marc Dechèvre? Marc Dechèvre in 2008 discovered Joomla and the power of his community. It gave him a lot, and in return, he was pleased to give back. So that's why he's a regular speaker. He's been in international conferences. He's been in different Joomla user groups. It's amazing how many he's been participating in. I have listened to many of his talks, and he taught me a lot over the years, believe me. He regularly publishes articles about Joomla in general, and right now a lot of things about custom things in particular. Today, Marc is going to show us the power of custom fields and some unusual usage. You will never look at custom fields the same way again. So I am proud to welcome Marc to the virtual stage. Hello, Marc.
All right.
He's back. He's back.
Yeah.
All right. I leave the stage to you.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for organizing this first edition of the JoomlaDay USA. I'm quite frustrated that for more than 1 year now, there has been no in-person events, and I'm looking forward to the next JoomlaDay France, the in-person one in the Netherlands and everywhere in Europe and elsewhere to meet you again, guys. So today's topic, actually, every time I was working on the slides, every time my title would get longer. So the current title is Joomla Custom Fields and External Data, Powerful Overrides Made Easy with Joomla Tools Pages. So Johan, the father of, well, actually one of the fathers of Joomla also, but the father of Joomla Tool Pages made a session 2 hours ago about Joomla Pages, where he made a global introduction and also spoke about more advanced things. So here I will really speak about step by step how to, oh, let me just change my screen. Yeah, step by step how to use Joomla Tool Pages to go even further with Joomla custom fields. So I've built, actually, as you can see, I have prepared 100 slides. Not that I would read everything right now in 1 hour, but at least after the session, you can go quietly to the website, the demo website, and to the slides, and go into more details if it went a bit too fast for you here or there. So actually, All my presentations, and there are many about custom fields, are available on my website in my subdomain slides.wordweb.be, and the demo for today is available at pages.joomlacustomfields.org. So about Joomla Tools pages, I put here the download link, the pages release announcements, the discussions page, and the wiki. So if you want to know more about pages, and you should definitely want to know more about pages, just go there and read more. Johan made a presentation 2 hours ago, I was mentioning, but he has already made 2 other presentations at the Joomla Shack conference. So go and have a look at that. It's very interesting. So why this presentation first? Actually, I share 2 qualities, if I can name them so, with Johan. We are both Belgians. We have never met in person, but he lives like 30 kilometers from my place in Brussels. And we are both Joomla fans. And actually, what could be interesting about this presentation is that I'm not a coder. I'm not a developer. I could be called maybe a power user, an integrator, right? So I know a bit of coding. I can build a little plugin, but I'm definitely not a real coder. And as you will see, what you can build with Joomla Tools pages, even if you are not an advanced developer, is just crazy. And I'm a big fan, the #1 fan in the world, probably, of Joomla custom fields. So I'm very thankful to Alan Moritz from Switzerland, who introduced them in Joomla 3.7 at the time, a few years ago, because custom fields were really a game changer. Really, without custom fields in Joomla, and I like to stick to the core as much as possible, there are so many websites I could not build properly, or then depend on some extension which would not fit the purpose exactly. So custom fields really make Joomla much more powerful. And when I discovered Joomla Tools pages like 1 year ago, I realized that it was compatible with Joomla custom fields. So obviously I was very curious to try it, to give it a try, and to see how far it would bring me. So it makes overrides and alternate layouts much easier. So it integrates a custom field, as I was saying, and it gives new possibilities. I can't even name all of them, but like fetching data from external sources, and I'll show examples of that. And the good news is that even non-coders or coders who don't know Joomla and the framework and how what are the standards in Joomla, etc., can immediately use it, because you get rid of all the context, right? So I'm always happy, as Olivier was saying, to share my enthusiasm about everything related to Joomla custom fields. So and I also like to learn by doing. So it is the purpose of this presentation. That's why I took the time to prepare 100 slides, so that you have every after the session to go and play for yourself. Please try. It's really worth it. It will change your life. So, and let's go for the step-by-step demo. So the first initial setup, actually the demo website. Yeah, first we should have a Joomla website, right? You know how to install that. Then you should install Joomla Tools pages. That's pretty straightforward. You just go to the GitHub. The link is here. You download the latest package and you install it like the usual way in Joomla. And after the installation, that's a screenshot of what you get. For other people, more advanced people who would use Composer, etc., you have a link here. There are other ways, more advanced ways to play with Joomla Tools pages and to install it. So, but here we can just install it the usual way. After installation, actually, very funny, is the first time, apart from the, probably you know that extension, Regular Labs, What Nothing. That's the only extension which would do nothing in Joomla, right? And here is the second one. In the backend, at least, you won't see any difference after installation. So no new menu item, no component, no configuration, no anything. Everything will happen with files that we will upload. And actually, that will make things very easy. Note that unless I'm mistaken, Joomla update pages does not use the Joomla Update Manager. So if you install it and there are new versions, just go to the GitHub and follow the project, and then you will get notified when there is a new version. Or use Composer or any more advanced method. So for the setup, actually after the installation, you simply go to the root of your website and you create a folder, Joomla Tools pages, /pages/pages. That's it. That's where we will put all our files, all our overrides, I will call them. And also, before starting, just enable URL rewriting, which you probably already always do in your website. Nobody wants to see that /index.php/ in the URL, right? And before starting for this demo, I explain here what I've done. I've created a category with a name. I created 3 dummy articles in that category. I created 2 custom fields. One text custom field, which I will call Social Brussels ID. You will see why afterwards. And another custom field of type URL with the name YouTube, because we'll add a YouTube video, for example. And then I propose some values for those custom fields. Why do I use? Why do I create that Social Brussels ID? Actually, there is. I wanted to have a source of open data, just to show that Joomla Tools pages makes it easy to fetch data from external sources like JSON format from external websites. So actually here in Brussels, Belgium, Europe, where I live, there is this website gathering all the details about all the social institutions, organizations active in Brussels. And it's open data. So for every one of them, there is a page giving the phone number, their address, their details, the president, the description of activities, everything. What you see here is the website, right, for humans. But we also have, if you just add REST in the URL, you have the same information, but in JSON format, so in a structured way, right? You don't need to know what is JSON exactly, but you see actually is the same information, but for computers. And this is what we will fetch after, so that my articles will go and fetch the relevant information on that external website. Also good to know on the Nebo website, before I really start to show in details, let me just close this. On the Nebo website, I've created different menu items. So the home gives the link to the slides, good. And then the second menu item is called cold. And there you can see every time the latest version of the code, PHP or whatever, that I use for every page. So for example, I have a page called, I don't know, step 5 here. If you want to know how I got this, you just go to code, step 5, and you immediately see that it was generated by these lines. Yep, so, and very funny, because it was not even planned, but even this very page, this code page, is generated by Pages itself. So I told Pages to go and fetch my source code so that it is always up to date, right? It is reading the pages, the files which are generating the different pages on my website. So I explain here how to do. It's very easy, just one line, well, 1/5 of a line to be precise, to to get that. Now this is not useful for now. Now let's start really the step-by-step demo. So step number one, something very easy. It is how I discovered Joomla Tools pages at first, and I thought, ooh, really interesting. It transforms Joomla into a kind of static page generator. So let's see what it gives. Actually, what we do is that in our famous folder that we created, Joomla Tools pages/pages, we create a file just simply named step1.html, having the following content. And I show two blocks. It is the same file, but I show two blocks. The first block is not necessary. It will work even without that, but it will allow us to give a title and a description to the page. But what is really interesting is the pure HTML here. Put any HTML you like. And actually, what do we get? I click on the link, and we get this. It is still my Joomla website, so I still benefit from everything from Joomla, right? The user management, the CMS, the menu items, the modules, the template, everything. But actually, instead of having an article here, it has Joomla Tools pages has injected my little HTML file. So very easy. Then this was not compulsory, it was optional, but in that file, I've also added a title and a summary. So you can do that for everything that I will show afterwards. Every time you can mention a title and a summary. And well, the title, you will see it on the tab of the browser, HTML page, and the description, the summary is the description of the page, like you would see in Google search or whatever. And by the way, if I'm not mistaken, the part, every time, the part between the triple dash is called the front matter. So if I use that term, it means the little block which defines the context of my file. Now, actually, I had taken 5 seconds to create that menu item called step 1, right? But even if I had not created that menu item, if I would type the URL of that page, so my domain name /step1, the page would appear, right? So it works even before that I create my menu item. Also, one thing I did not mention, because so I live in Belgium, and we are a little country, but a multilingual country with 3 official languages. So basically, almost all the websites I built are multilingual. So in that case, of course, instead of putting the file step1.html, forget about the .php. I should not have typed that. Instead of step1.html, you made the corresponding URL. So if you're on the English version, it will be /en for English. So you would just create a subfolder to match your language structure and your URL structure. So that was step number 1. Joomla Tools pages displays a simple HTML file. Step 2, Joomla Tools pages can also output Markdown. Actually, if you don't know what Markdown is, it is just writing like HTML if you want, but just in a plain text editor. If you want to write something in bold, you just type I don't know how is it called in English, but if you want to have a title, you put hashtag for level 1, double hashtag for level 2, etc. So here is a link to explain what is Markdown, but this very presentation is written in Markdown so that it is very easy. It is pure text, and then it displays nicely with some other tools. So in my famous folder, always the same, I create a file called step2.html .md this time for Markdown. And there, as input, I type, okay, again, I give a title and a summary. This is optional. And this is a title too, because I have hashtag to start the line with. And then this is what I meant with bold. This will appear as bold because there is these two stars. Right, so if I create that file, then what will be the output? Exactly this. I have a title too, and I have a little line here with my word Markdown, which is strong, which is bold. But of course, and this starts to be interesting to have more interaction and more possibilities. Joomla Tools Pages works also with PHP input. So let's start with something easy, something even independent of Joomla, right? Let's create a little file called step3.html.php in our folder. And there we will just type something basics, like we define a variable, then we just echo this we echo this variable, and then I display the date, right? And what will it give? Let us see this on the next page. Right, exactly. So we have the hello word, but this was made out of a variable and etc. We see that we are on Saturday, 6 p.m. And then I have an extra line. Let me go back to my code. Actually, even in a PHP file, I can embed a Markdown snippet, if you like. So I can even mix Markdown with my PHP here, and this is the syntax that you would use if you want to do that. So yeah, that's what I repeat here. So step number 4. I was really excited when I realized that Pages would allow to fetch external data. That's really a killing feature because, well, I've already played with, I don't know, plugins in Joomla to do something like that, but you have pages and pages of code maybe. Well, you can have, depends what you need. But here, gosh, it's just one line of code. So, and for this demo, I use then the data from social.brussels. That's the example I was giving at the start of the presentation. And let's see what it gives. So let us create a file called step4.html.php. Again, some front matter for the title and the summary. And then actually here you see that I just write one line of code. Maybe it will be easier to read on the website itself. Yeah, there we see everything. I don't have to scroll horizontally. So how do I display a value coming from the external website? This is the URL of the external website. I can even say, I can even configure the caching. I can say that it will cache the information for 1 day, 24 hours, or more or less, or whatever. And from that external JSON, well, it has a certain structure, and I can say, okay, I'll fetch the official name in Dutch, NL for Dutch, or the legal status, and the legal status is an array, and there I take the label in Dutch, or even further, I take the label in French a bit later in the code. So I've put 4 examples here. I could have taken only one, but let's see what it gives then on the demo website. This is step 4. So here I'm with one line of code. I'm fetching this and that and that, and a 4th thing coming from where was the link? Coming from that page, that external page, right? And here you see the structure with the legal status, label in French or label in Dutch. So very easy to fetch one line of code. And the great thing is that you can configure the cache, because so if you don't define anything here, if you don't say like here 1 day, then it is cached forever, right? Which is good. Like if you have if you fetch a tweet, that's just fine. Like in this case, if I fetch the phone number of an association in Brussels, the idea is that if the phone number changes tomorrow, that my websites reflect that change. So 1 day is just fine in my example. Our fifth step. Now, let's make Joomla Tools pages interact with Joomla itself, right? Because so far it was generic, and now let's fetch articles from our website. So here, let us create a file called step5.html.php in our folder. And what do we have now? Actually, in the front matter, so to start the file, we write collection and we type model, and there we will say that our information comes from the database, the Joomla database, and that we will query the table called content, which is a table containing all our articles, right? And then it is just regular HTML with a little bit of PHP, like for each, just to make a loop. So I make a loop through all the articles, right? And they are just named $article. And then simply I can say, okay, for the article, for example, here, I fetch the cat ID, which is a category ID in the Joomla database. You might know that. Or more obvious, article, and I go and fetch the intro text, right? So let's see the result. Right, so I've made a loop, and to get, I do not filter, right? So here it is fetching all the articles of the website, and I have 4 of them. The article for the homepage, and then 3 articles that I created for organization 1, 2, and 3 as examples for this demo site. And every time we see that it would display the publishing date, the category ID, and the intro text, right? I did not make any CSS, whatever, so that's why it just displays one after the other. Afterwards, we will improve the design. But let's make some comments. First, maybe if you're not familiar with the Joomla native files, actually in the database, everything related to the images, intro images and full article images, are not directly available. They are inside a JSON, right? They are in JSON format. So actually, in the native Joomla files, every time you want to get the name of an image, or the path and the name of an image, you have to first JSON decode that field in database, and afterwards you can access everything like the path of the and the name of the image, the intro image. That was it for this step. Very easy one, just accessing directly. Here I took the articles table in the database, but you could go and fetch anything from any table, of course. The next step is that, okay, let's make a real blog view, because we can do much more than what I've just seen. But to do that, because actually here we had some limitations, right? What do I find in the database? I find the category ID. Yes, but most of the time what I want to display on my website is the is the title of the category, not the ID, but that's another table in the Joomla's database. So actually, if I want to go further and benefit from more power, instead of querying directly the articles table, I will install a little extension of Joomla Tools Pages. So it is called Joomla Tools Pages Joomla Extensions. So you just go to the regular download page of Joomla Tools Pages, and I will show you why not. Here on the right, you have the releases. So I just click on the latest. It was 2 days ago. Johan has worked a lot these days. And I'm sorry I contributed maybe to make him work even more with my questions. So here you see the file that you could download for Joomla Tools Pages, and right after ext_joomla.zip is the extension. So it's a very light extension, 24 kilobytes. And let's see how we install that. Actually, you just unzip it on your computer, and then you would create the following folder: Joomla Tools-Pages, like for the rest, /extensions. And there you simply upload the files into that newly created directory. So actually with Pages, installing is just uploading the files, right? You can just take a file from some other site, you copy paste it. You don't have to install anything. Everything is copy pasting with Joomla Tools Pages. And it makes it more universal. So now that we have this extension, which will give more power to Joomla Tools Pages, we can go and create our next file, which is step 6.html.php. And with the following content. So again, it is one file. Here I had to split it on two slides so that it would be readable. So first, the front matter. We say that it is a collection because here we are fetching Joomla articles, but you could use it for K2 or for other stuff, right? Here I'm just speaking today about articles because it is what I use most of the time. It is a good way to start with, but you could generalize that with other extensions. So now, thanks to the fact that we have installed the Joomla extensions for Joomla Tools Pages, now we can write this, right? The ext joomla.model.articles. So now Joomla Tools Pages know how to handle Joomla articles, and will give us, this will make our code very easy. I can even make specifications for what I want to retrieve, right? I only want, for example, published article. Published is set on 1. I don't want all articles like on my previous example. I only want the articles from, let's say, one category, the organizations category. And this is the alias. I could put the ID. I don't think I can put the title. Not sure about that, but at least the alias and the ID. Or I could put several ones with separated by a comma, I guess. So I can filter on my articles. I can even sort. So here I'm sorting them by date, publication date. And I can choose the order, ascending order or descending order if I wanted to. And I can even limit. So here I limit it to 3, like if I had plenty of articles. This allows me to fetch the first X articles, right? So this tells Pages what should be retrieved. And now the code itself. Maybe I should go to the link here, because there I have everything on one screen and I don't have to scroll horizontally. There, actually, well, I will start with the end, right? I will show the result and then it is easier to explain. Actually, what I wanted here is a bit more is a nice layout. So I wanted to have cards with organization 1, 2, and 3. So to have 3 cards on one row. I wanted to show the image, and I wanted a certain design. So to do that, I had to add CSS. So I just here put a style tag, and I've used CSS Grid, right, to make this little layout. So actually, for this nice layout with a shadow, with everything, it's just a few lines of CSS. So see for yourself. I'm using here Grid and Flex, CSS Grid and Flex. I'll have a word about that right after. And then, okay, I have a few lines that because I'm not showing only the title, but also the image, the category, the publication date, the intro text, the full text, then even both together. And then I'm even fetching information from the external website. Do you remember that JSON external file? So that's why I have several lines here in the code. So this is just to fetch the title. This is, for example, to fetch the intro text. And I'll make some comments after about that. And again, to fetch the JSON, what do I do? Do you remember I had created a custom field called social browsers ID, and I have given a value for each article, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And that ID would correspond to the ID on the external website. And here, what I do to fetch, like, let's take the street of some organization. So I'm just saying, okay, let's fetch from that data. I'll take the address, and in the address, I'll take the number. Or in the address, I'll take the street or the postal code here, the postal code, etc. So this is very easy and very short. So we have already seen the result. I've explained this already. So why did I use CSS Grid and Flexbox? Because actually, the most recent templates in Joomla 3 use Bootstrap 4. Some older websites use Bootstrap 3. Protostar, which I'm using here, I'm just using a standard, good old Protostar. This is based on Bootstrap 2, and I didn't want my HTML to depend on that, so that if you copy-paste my code, it would work immediately on your website. And Joomla 4, we use Bootstrap 5, of course. So here I wanted something universal, and with just CSS Grids or Flexbox, you can get something really nice without depending on these heavy frameworks, right? And also a good reason for you, if you don't know about it already, CSS Grid is used massively in Joomla 4. So if you have not looked into it, it's a good moment to do so, because it is so easy and so powerful, right? One thing I did not mention. So actually, in my file, I've put the style directly right where I've put the HTML and the PHP. Normally, you would never want to do that in a Joomla override, right? Because you're supposed to put the style in the header of the page, not in the middle of the page. Or then you would gather that in the custom.css file of your template. And here, the nice thing about Joomla Tools pages is that actually it is smart enough, and it will take the style, it will take the CSS here defined in my PHP file, and it will put it automatically in the header of the page when it's rendered. So also very easy, because then you have everything under the eyes. When you're changing your HTML, you can change your CSS at the same time. Here we are using the Joomla Router. So if I go back to the demo, if I click on Organization 1, I will see that the URL is 8-organizations, because this is the old root, it's not called old, but the traditional router of Joomla, not the legacy router of Joomla, not the most recent one in Joomla 3. So it still shows by default the ID of the category. It also shows the ID of the article before showing its alias. And of course, I have the default Joomla layout for the article, meaning title and then all the custom fields, but the raw value, right? It's just showing the label, sorry, the title, the label I gave to the custom fields and its value, like social Brussels ID and a YouTube URL, because I already created a YouTube custom field with a different YouTube video for each article, right? So this is the standard rendering of Joomla. And how did we get this link on the title? Simply thanks to this. So again, it is much shorter than in real Joomla override. You just write $article get route, and that's it. And Joomla Tools Pages knows the link to the native link to the article. Also much easier than in a native override. I was mentioning previously, when you want to get the name of the intro image or full article image in a native Joomla override, you first have to JSON decode the field and then use it. And here actually we have a direct access. We just write $article image URL. That's it. So much shorter, much easier to understand. So as I was saying in the beginning, be it for a beginner or maybe from somebody who is a good coder but has no experience with Joomla, everything is much more easier. The category title. What did I want? Yes, sure. That's what I wanted to say. I mentioned it already. When you access with Joomla Tools Pages, when you access the articles with the table, with the database, then in the database you only have the ID. Here it's very easy because I don't have to bother. I just type article, category, title, and Joomla Tools Pages does it for me. It goes and fetches and makes the links. It knows what the ID is, and it makes the link with the other table in the database. Intro text and full text. This wording dates back from, I don't know, the Mambo times, I guess. I was not there yet. But actually here, in Joomla Tools Pages, it has been renamed as excerpt and text, just to be more coherent with other sources, right? Because Joomla Tools Pages does much more than deals with many more things than just Joomla articles. So these are more universal. This is more universal wording. For more information, just click on the link. And then, of course, as I was saying, the custom fields, because this is where my heart lies. The custom fields, they become so easy to display. Again, if you compare with what you have to do and understand in PHP, in code, when you want to use Joomla custom fields in an override, here you just type article fields, you type the name of the field, of the custom field. Well, the name is actually the alias. I don't know why they called it name instead of alias like for the rest of Joomla, but it is the name, which means alias of the custom field. And then if I want a label, okay, I just type label. And if I want the value, I just type value. That's it. And here value means the raw value, meaning the value in the database. While in the Joomla override, when you type value, it means the value through the rendering, because Joomla, like if it's a YouTube video, and you have installed a YouTube custom fields, it would display the video, right? Not the URL. It would transform the URL into the video player. So here in the context of Joomla tools pages, value really means the raw value of the database. If what you want, and I'm very grateful to Johan, because it came from a discussion we had a couple of months ago, which is really great, is that if what you want is the Joomla's rendering, like if it is a YouTube custom feed or an OpenStreetMap custom feed or whatever, actually all you have to do is not to say that you want the label or the value. You just say you want the field and you give the name, the alias of the custom field, and that's it. And it will render the Joomla way, meaning that if you had plenty of options in the Joomla custom fields, like is it responsive? Yes, no. Do I want the color for the play button? Is it green? Is it blue? Is it yellow? All these options are taken into account when rendering here with Joomla Tools pages. And like if you want examples of interesting custom fields, there are many more. So I will publish in the Joomla Community Magazine an article gathering all the Joomla custom fields I know of. But for a good start, just go and have a look at those by Tassos, and there is a free version which is very complete. Just one thing, beware. If you have spaces in the title of your custom fields, by default, Joomla will suggest a name including dashes, right? It will replace the spaces with dashes. This is just fine, right? But then you have to adapt a little bit the syntax in the code. Like if there is a dash in the name, in the alias of the custom field, either you write it with curly brackets, either you have to write explicitly get and in parentheses with the alias containing a dash. If there is no dash, then it is the syntax that I've shown previously. So in practice, I suggest that you simply avoid having dashes in the names of the custom fields and make your code even easier. Now, we had already seen in one of the first steps how to fetch information from an external website, but there it was hard-coded. Here now, what we've done is that for each article, so there was this social Brussels ID custom field, and for each article, I've given a value, right? For example, in this case, 13817. And so, as previously shown, the corresponding URL shows all the information, address, telephone number, etc., of that organization. So this is a line of code which will fetch the information. So this line is in my file for step 6, right? Right. I just write equals to say that I want to echo, to display the data from that external website, and then I want to add the ID and the ID of that organization. So the 13817, I just fetch it here thanks to my custom field associated to that article. Then I say that I cache that information for 1 day, so that my website keeps up to date if their phone number changes, but it's not that it fetches it every 3 seconds, right? And what I want to display from that external source is the address, and in the address, I only want the street in Dutch, NL for Dutch. Well, if you want to make a comparison, I won't show it here, but just have a look here. I'll give the link to the Joomla view for the blog view. Like if you want to render everything like I've shown here, which is so easy with Joomla Tools pages. Well, for a coder, probably it is also easy with Joomla, but it involves more complexity. So the next step is that, and we're on track, I see. The next step is that actually I could split my code. Well, my files are all, my code is already very short, right? Because Joomla Tools pages makes it easy. But sometimes you want still to split those files into even smaller files so that they are more readable. They are also easier to maintain, but also so that they can be reused at different places. And for example, because I like to play with custom fields, Olivier told it in the introduction, and I do confirm. For example, this would allow us to simply transform a simple text custom field into, for example, a block of text made of many fields taken from that external JSON, or a simple URL custom field into a YouTube video player with all the desired options. So this is what we do now. Step 7, we create that file. We have the front matter, well, basically the same thing. I did not mention, but actually I added this process filters highlight on all of them. Actually, this is completely optional. But why did I do this? Actually, if I go to, okay, any step 7, for example, for those of you who are curious, right, I've made a var dump of the whole array, the whole collection, so that you can immediately see all the fields which are available in the article or in the custom fields, etc., right? And okay, the var dump works as such, but to have this highlighting, so the colored syntax, right? If you simply add, oh, I've closed the page, which is a byte ID. 1 second. Yeah. What was I saying? Yeah. So if I simply type that, it will automatically highlight any code which you display on your page. So on a regular website, of course, unless you are explaining how to make overrides and you put CSS and PHP in your page, nobody needs that. But right, so this is the explanation about this filters highlight. Then we have the code for step 7, which is very similar. So as suggested, it is step by step. So I have the same style block here. And here, what is the difference? Actually, let's first see the results on the website for step 7. For step 7, what I wanted is that with only using the custom fields with the social Brussels ID, I wanted to have such a block so that it would fetch. Here I'm fetching only 3 information. I could fetch more. So I'm fetching the ID and the label in French and in Dutch. That's one thing. And then with the other custom fields, I wanted to have 2 different renderings. One, for example, is a button linked to the video, right? This is if I click on it, you will get to the YouTube video, right? Or even directly the YouTube player. So how do we get this? Let's see the code. Here in that part, I'm just saying, because I wanted this file to be very short, so I will just import it so that it is easy to reuse anywhere, and we will do it later on. So I can import a file which is actually called, for example, socialbrussels.html here, but the real file is called .html.php, or for example, in partials embeds, because it is the standard way to create the folders. I can create a file called youtube.html.php, right? And here in my blog view, I'm just importing those files. So let's have a look at what they look like. So these are called partials, right? So these are like snippets, little pieces of code that you can call from any other file. This is what I was showing here. Let's take this one. This is maybe a bit shorter. Right, so here in that url.html.php, this would turn my URL into a button. So very easy. Actually, the custom field I'm sending, the value I'm sending is just here, right? I've called it URL when I called it in my code. Here I've called it URL, right? For the social browsers, I decided to call it ID, but I could have called it Johan, right? And then I have to adapt the partial accordingly. So here I've called it URL, this variable, and I just type my HTML. So in the case of a link with the look of a button, the look of the button is given by the class button primary. But if I take the next slide, this is a bit more advanced, but it's just 3 lines of code, right? It is really standard. It is just a regex, which will transform your URL into the video player, right, with an iframe. And so there also we have the URL here, which is the URL called by my blog view. So having this, we've already seen the results. It makes it very easy to display a blog coming from an external website with different information, a button, and a YouTube player. But actually, there is even better than that, because here I was still using for the title the link to the regular Joomla rendering for an article.
Hey, Mark, can you hear me? Yeah, I'm sorry, we're running out of time.
Oh yes, it's 45. Sorry, I thought it was. Oh.
I'm sorry people can't see me. There's something wrong with my camera, but yes, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, but anyway, everything is in the slides, right? So
yeah, it's a super interesting and very complex stuff. It's very nice. You did a great job. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Anyway, everybody has now 100 slides to read this afternoon, this night, or tomorrow, whatever. But so there is. Yeah, I can go to the conclusion maybe.
Excuse me, I don't see any questions in the Q&A, so I guess there's none for now. But you are welcome to contact Marc during this session today, during the whole day. He'll be around, so you can send private messages. So don't hesitate to do that. And thanks very much, Marc. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you all. And I would like to thank Johan, who was very kind and patient with me asking questions. And also, there are features which have been improved after our discussions, but there are also so many things. Here I've just covered maybe 20% of what Joomla Tools pages can do. But there is much more than that, and more features like ACL, which will be introduced in the next few months. So it's quite exciting, I must say.
It is. It has a lot of stuff. And Johan, I didn't see his talk, but I will definitely look at it too.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all, and then we'll see you. Do the networking if you have time, and go to the expo halls, and we'll see you in other sessions too.
I stay here in the room for those who want to ask questions or to whatever.
Yeah, definitely. You may be cut off at some point, but
yeah, of course.
You're welcome to stay a few minutes. You're welcome to stay a few more minutes.
It's almost 9 p.m. here, so I won't stay all night.
All right.
And thank you again for organizing this, guys.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. We love it, and we like to have you here. So thank you.
So if you have any questions or yes, Mary, pages make things fast, and I must say I'm quite excited. And now that I've prepared my 100 slides, even for myself, everything is much clearer. So the next website I'm going to build will make an extensive use of that, especially that I like custom feeds and overrides so that I get the layout that I do want. But you should definitely have a look at Johan's session. Since you are here, it means that you have access to the replay when it will be made available. So that will be nice, because in his session he explained more about the context, and he also explained more advanced things like cache or more advanced uses. Here, actually, in 100 slides, I've shown, okay, extensively, but how to make the equivalent of Joomla overrides using custom fields and external sources. But it makes it so easy, so short, so straightforward that yeah, I just like it. And this is open source, right? So Johan is not being paid to build this, and I'm just a simple user of that tool. It's just that I was so excited when I discovered it that I wanted to share this enthusiasm. Yeah, Johan is mentioning their website completely built with pages. As I was saying, I'm just a starter with pages, right? Johan can do creative things, and there are so many more options that I'm not even aware of. So yeah, the presentation, because I gave the link. I did not mention that explicitly, maybe, but when you go to the demo website, there is the link to the presentation on the home page. And then if you want other presentation about Joomla custom fields, feel free to go and have a look. But for every presentation the last years, there is a slide version, but also an HTML version, which is more handy. Like when you want to have a look at it after, you can go through it faster than through the slides version. I go and have a look into the questions. I'm still there, so feel free to ask. And anyway, I'm still around afterwards, so I'm always happy to share about this. Here are my details if you want to get in touch, or anyway, via the organizers of JoomlaDay USA. You just type my name. There are not many Dechèvre in the world, so have a nice JoomlaDay USA. I'll leave the room now, and maybe we'll see together in the networking place here. See you. Bye. Thank you for being there. Thank you to be part of the Joomla community. See you.